This thing on? Looks like it's on. Are you ready? It's been a month. Are you ready for another one take, hot take market update? This is my market update video that I do in one take because editing video is boring. So I just do this on the fly. I'm going to talk about what happened in August in the Calgary market. I'm going to show you a little bit of stuff on Airdrie too because I do live in Airdrie. And we're going to look at the big picture, what the whole market did, and then we're going to break that down as usual into different subcategories, give you an idea of where the market is, what the market did in August, how it got there from the year leading up to that, and where it appears to be going. So I'll get started. This is the big picture. This is the trend for the entire Calgary residential real estate market, resale market. And we've got red bars and gray bars. Red bars are the sales. That's the number of sales. Gray bars represents the amount of inventory, the number of homes on the market. And the white line is the benchmark price. It's not the average price, it's the benchmark price. It's a composite. It represents the typical home sold in Calgary and what it's sold for based on the housing price index. So what you see here, we've got a whole year in front of us. And you see that white line really jumps out at you. That's the price. And you can see coming into 2021, at the start of the new year, just rocketed up like that, right? This way. And we saw a pretty dramatic climb in prices. And we saw all the price losses, you know, from 2015, the oil crash, through 2019, through 2020. We saw all those erased and climb back up to prices at or above 2014 levels. And you look at the tail end of that, there, you can see it just kind of starting to dip. So we kind of hit a little bit of a peak in the summer and it cooled off a tiny bit. And then you can see the corresponding sales and inventory. The gray bars, you can see the inventory peaking in June and then going down. This normal seasonal stuff for the summer. And then you see the sales kind of cooling off too. So the sales kind of peaked in the spring. It was madness. Multiple offers on everything, even kind of crappy properties. People were getting in bidding wars to buy anything. Just a lack of supply and a whole bunch of demand, especially in detached homes, which we'll come around to. For my personal experience, August pretty quiet for me. I continued to do my regular stuff, but not a lot of sales activity personally. But the market did have a good month. It had one of the best August ever. Way up from last August again, and just a little off from July preceding it. So I'm going to jump into the detached homes here. So these numbers represent year over year changes, those percentages. So when you see for sale 2,770, that's squeaky chair time here. That's how many listings are on the market. That's the inventory. So that's down 14% from August of 2020. Sales up 31% from August of 2020. 1,300 detached homes sold in Calgary. New listings, 1,572, up from last year. So one thing we look at is sales to new listings ratio, and 1,300 out of 1,572. That's like 80%, right? That's still a seller's market. Still a seller's market on detached homes. The entire market is going more towards a balanced condition, but it's still very much a seller's market on detached homes. The cooling off part about it, that just kind of means that, from my perspective, houses that don't really deserve to have a bidding war on them aren't getting it. So, a house that presents well, it shows well, it is in good condition, that's priced right, is still going to sell right away for full price or a little above full price. But it's not like when it was crazy here in, March, April, May, when even kind of like mediocre houses were getting bidding wars because there's just nothing to buy and a lot of people trying to buy. So average price up from last year. That's the average sale price of a detached home in Calgary, knocking on 600 grand there, right? 36 days on market, down from last year. So it only takes 36 days on average to sell your detached home. That's including the condition period. So that's from the time that the day it's listed to the day that all the conditions are removed. And sold versus list price, right up under 98% on average. So when you hear stories about Toronto, how stuff's going, 2, 3, 400,000 above asking, we don't do that here, and that's more of a pricing strategy. Price something below market value, get a bidding war going, get people crazy for it. You can only do that in a really low supply market. A lot of that was happening here on a smaller scale. I listed a few places like that where we priced them a little bit below what we knew they would sell at to generate offers. And I had a few, affordable detached homes in the 400 range that got 7, 8 offers on them. So it's a big win for the seller. But on average, people are getting 98% of what they're asking. So if I move to the trend line on detached, you see much of the same thing. The detached kind of drives the market in Calgary. So you can see that kind of skyrocketing price earlier in the year, and it just kind of tapered off and starting to dip a little bit. So that benchmark price is down a little bit from last month, and that doesn't necessarily mean that house values have gone down. It just means that the houses that are selling are cheaper. You know what I'm saying? So, don't interpret this as like, oh, the market peaked and it's going to go downhill. There's still lots of room for growth, and when we look at the big picture, I think we can still expect to see prices continue to go up slow and steady in Calgary for the foreseeable future. So you look at the red bars, right? The sales, climbing down in a normal seasonal trend, and the inventory climbing down to correspond with it. So that's what the trend looks like for detached. So if I go to semi-detached, which means like half a duplex, another hot market on these, right? Inventory's down, sales are up, again, over the same period last year. New listings up, supply starting to catch up. Average price down a little bit compared to last year. So that, again, has to do with the supply starting to catch up. So sales to new listings ratio, 177 sales versus 266 new listings added to the market. More of a balanced type market for semi-detached. 38 days on market on average, 98% sold versus list price. And if we look at the trend, we're seeing much the same thing, just not as dramatic of movements on that. Prices came up. Supply is pretty tight, and but this is what a balanced market looks like. Pretty level. Still some pretty dramatic moves in there, but compared to detached, not so much. If we look at the trend, if we go to the next category is row homes. So that's your townhouses, right? 958 of those on the market. That's a little bit less than this time last year by 4.68%. 342 of those sold, up 56% over last year. This is a market that I'm paying close attention to because I own a townhome in Calgary, and I watched those kind of go in the toilet, through 17, 18, 2019, and they're starting to make a comeback as the gap widens between a townhouse and a detached house. You look at the average price, 319,000 compared to almost 600,000 for a detached home on average in Calgary. This is just a product that's more affordable to more buyers. Prices are creeping up on those. Days on market down. Sold price versus list price up. So if you look at the trend on the row homes, you can see lots of supply, but getting chipped away at, right? Those gray bars, you can see the gap kind of closing between supply and demand. So I think these are going to get a little hotter. I can see the prices being pushed up on these. It's still pretty level for now, but I still see some room for growth on row homes. So I think that's a good investment right now. If you find a row home that you like, I think they got as cheap as they were going to get a couple years ago, and I think we can expect to see those go up for a while. Now, apartment in Calgary, as usual. I do these every month. Very similar story. This tells a different story than the rest of the market. Apartments in Calgary, still very much a buyer's market. So almost 1,800 apartments on the market in Calgary right now. Just 332 of those sold last month. Still, that's up 49% from last year. But again, last year, height of the COVID craze, and not a lot of people wanted to live in an apartment. So that's coming around. New listings, 571. So the sales to new listings ratio looks a lot better there, but there's still so much inventory that it's still very much a buyer's market on apartments. Prices are creeping up. Average prices are creeping up a little bit. I am seeing some sales just on a anecdotal basis. Some sales of like some higher end luxury penthouses and stuff. There's been a few of those moving the last couple months, so that pulls the average price up. But still, $258,000 is the average price of an apartment in Calgary. It takes an average of 63 days to sell one of those, and you're getting on average 96% of your asking price. If we look at the trend, not much movement in the price, right? You can see it's crept up over the last year, but you still that huge gray bar. That's a big amount of inventory for a small amount of sales. So there's like 5 or 6 months supply of apartments right now. Still a buyer's market. And then one last slide. I threw this in last month. I'm going to keep doing this because my followers appreciated this. And just a little bit about Airdrie. Now, you want to see a hot market. I'm working with 4 different buyers right now out of Toronto and Southern Ontario that are moving out here. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I don't have the statistics on that, but I think we're going to see a lot of migration into Calgary, especially from Toronto, because the way the economy's changed and the way people are able to work from home or work remotely or whatever. These people have all this equity in their home out there. I just got off the phone with a guy who just sold his condo in Toronto, wants to move out here, and for what he got for his condo in Toronto, he can get a really nice detached house in Calgary. And he's an outdoorsy type person. He can live close to the mountains, and just a lot higher quality of life on his income level. So, but anyways, people like that are looking at places like Airdrie because, if you look in Toronto, there's all these smaller, bedroom communities like Newmarket and places like that, where you just get a little bit out of the city and you get a little more value for your money. And a lot of people from out of province are looking at places like Airdrie and as well Cochrane and Okotoks for stuff like that. And I featured Airdrie on here because I live in Airdrie and this is important to me. But this is tight, really tight supply, right? So just 260 homes on the market. That's across all categories. That's not just detached. That's across all categories. 260 homes on the market. 183 sold last month, and 206 new listings. So, 18 out of 20. That's like 90% sales to new listings ratio. That is a strong seller's market. So if you're if you're an Airdrie and you've got a nice detached home, you got lots of equity in it, maybe you don't need that big of a house anymore, your kids have moved out or whatever, it's a good time to sell here. So benchmark price of $389,000. Again, that is across all product classifications. So that includes the apartments and the townhouses and stuff. And again, anecdotally, I'm seeing more of the cheap apartments get sold in Calgary now too. There's been a lot of them just sitting on the market for a while. Those are starting to get bought up again, like under $200K apartments and really cheap townhouses. So stuff's really moving in Airdrie. Only 1.42 months of supply. So at any rate, that is your hot take market update for August. If you want more detail, you have any questions, call, email, text, DM anytime, and have a great September.